right, let's go ahead and disconnect our negative battery terminal. Set that aside so it's making no contact with the battery. Okay friends, to get started on our blower motor, first we have to locate it. It's going to be located right here on the passenger side of your truck. What you're going to notice when it comes time to removing it is that there's a whole bunch of wiring in the way. So what we first want to do is, of course, try to get it out of the way as far as possible. If you were to look down along this way right here, you're going to be able to find that there's a mounting nut that holds the wiring to this area. Go ahead and remove that nut. There we are. We'll set that aside. Now we can go ahead and grab onto that bracket and remove it from the box. That's going to give us a little bit more room. Now the next thing I want to do is disconnect the wiring from the blower motor right here. If you were to lift up on this tab right here, you're going to be able to go ahead and draw the wiring away from the blower motor. Anytime that you remove any type of wiring, always inspect it. If you see any funny colors, it's corrosion and it needs to be dealt with. This looks great. Let's set it aside. The next thing we want to do is remove this hose right along here. I'm just going to grab onto it at the box, remove it from there, and then it should slide right out of the blower motor. Let's set this aside. Now the next thing we need to do is get inside of the passenger side wheel well. What we want to look for is this right here. Once you find that, go ahead and grab onto it with some locking pliers, and that's essentially going to hold the stud that we're going to be dealing with from the top. Let's go ahead and hold onto that. Okay, now while we're going to be holding that stud from underneath, let's continue on by removing the nut. Now let's move along to disconnecting our wiring from our PCM. If you were to lift up on this tab right here, you can go ahead and draw this away. After that, squeeze on this tab or even lift up underneath there and draw this connector off. After you remove it, check for any corrosion. This looks good. Let's do the same to the other one. To be able to access the other two wires, we're going to continue on to removing our 3 mounting bolts. Now let's just carefully set this aside. Now let's come over to where the overflow hose connects onto the radiator. I'm going to go ahead and use a pocket screwdriver, come underneath this area here. We'll disconnect our clamp. Now I'll go ahead and grab onto the hose. We'll slide that off of there. Now the next thing we want to do is continue on by removing the rest of our mounting bolts for our coolant reservoir. There's going to be one located right here, one in the center right there, and then of course the one that we already removed back here. So go ahead and grab onto that reservoir. We're going to carefully lift it up and out of the truck. Okay, now the next thing we need to do is go ahead and remove all 5 of our mounting bolts. This is what they look like, and they're going to be located all the way around the blower motor. Okay, there's our last bolt. Now that we've got all the bolts out of there, let's go ahead and grab onto the blower motor, give it a nice wiggle, break it free, and we should be able to carefully try to squeeze this out of here. There it is, friends. Okay, friends, now it's time to install our brand new blower motor. Let's go ahead and carefully slide it in here. All right, now we're just going to line this up so that the wiring matches up along the top, and then we'll start in all of our screws and snug them up. Okay, now that we got them all snug, let's move along. Now let's connect our hose. Just going to put it right on the blower motor down here. Once it's on there, let's continue on to putting it onto the box. Perfect. Now let's connect in our blower motor. Now let's put in our coolant reservoir. Make sure you don't crush any of your wiring. Line it up with the studs and slide it down. Now let's make sure we put on our mounting nuts. Have those 2 others started. Let's continue on by putting on our stud and our nut. Gonna come through the wheel well. Put our nut on there. Let's just snug them all up. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and put the hose back onto the radiator. If you lost your clip, just make sure you hold it down with something such as maybe a wire tie. Let's go ahead and remount our PCM. Just line it up. We'll start in all of our bolts and then snug them up. Now let's put our bracket back onto our stud, and then of course put the nut on there to hold it on. Now we're going to continue on to connecting in our connectors. You're going to notice one of them has a black tab on it. That's going to line up with this area right here. Go ahead and push it in, listen for a click, then give it a nice tug. You want to make sure that these are both secure. We've got our white side. Let's go ahead and connect it in. There we are. Another tug. Perfect. Now let's put on our locking clips. Slides right in. That just makes it so this can't fall off. Now it's time to reconnect our negative battery terminal. Start it on there and snug it up. Okay, so we got it all back together. Now all you have to do is hop in the truck and try your blower motor on all speeds.